All right. Hello, everyone. This is Nick Signorello, Vice President of AMZ Advisors Asia Pacific Division. It's a pleasure to have you here today with Merchant Spring and AMZ Advisors. We're being joined today by Amazon sellers from all over the world listening in. And this is a particularly special webinar. It's the first time we're going to reveal some insights we've gathered on new exciting marketplaces such as Amazon Australia, India, the Netherlands, as well as more established ones such as the UK and Canada. Our first panelist, James DeHarjo, founder of multi-account performance software Merchant Spring, will be diving deep into global selling and cross-border marketplaces. He's going to be followed up by our second panelist, Michael Begg, who will discuss unified marketplaces and breaking down what things need to be considered when expanding globally. Just a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please leave them in the chat section or Q&A section, and we'll do our best to get some of them answered by our panelists afterwards. So without further ado, I'll let James start by introducing himself.
Thanks, Nick. So for those of you who are watching this as part of our onboarding flow, you probably know who I am, but I'm the co-founder of Merchant Spring, and I'm responsible for evolving and iterating and improving our software product to help our users sell more and sell more effectively. So I might as well jump straight into it. So if you are watching this as part of our onboarding flow and watching the recording, I just wanted to paint the picture of what does global selling look like, right? So if you are using our product or thinking about using our product, you probably realize there's a lot of channels that it can connect to, and this is the reason why. So in the past few years, global marketplaces have evolved really, really rapidly. So, if you're looking at the global landscape, most of these marketplaces actually didn't exist a couple of years ago, right? Depending where you are in the world, you're probably realizing that there are more and more and more marketplaces. As an example, in Australia, where I'm based, I think we're now approaching 10 marketplaces, right? In a country that only has 20-ish million people. So, I think more marketplaces really means more sales opportunities, but also more complexity, right? So, based on this map, and what I'm trying to show here is there are a lot of marketplaces globally, no matter where you are. Now, having a lot of marketplaces is, sure, it's good, but it also, what does it really mean as a seller? And what does it, I'll get to this in a bit, but what does it mean for you as an Amazon seller, right? So broadly, it means that there are essentially more places to buy for the customer. But what we're seeing behind that is, the customers are getting increasingly more comfortable with marketplaces. I suppose, if you go back a few years, like there was this, especially in Australia and Asia Pacific, there was this preconception that it's like safer to buy off a brand's actual website, or it's, better experience and all that. But actually now, more marketplaces, people are also becoming more comfortable with buying off multiple marketplaces, which is why we're kind of having this conversation and sharing with you that it's important to be aware of all the different marketplaces you can sell on, because they are still real sales opportunities, right? So, how does this kind of translate to cross-border activity, right? So, yes, there are lots of marketplaces. Yes, there are lots of customers buying off marketplaces, and they are comfortable to do so. But, the question is, should you just be focused in your where you are based, right? So if you're in Australia, should you just sell in Australia? If you're in the US, should you just sell in US? Now, based on what we have found, that's probably not the case for many people. They don't just sell in the country that they are based. And that is why, if you're watching this as part of our onboarding flow, that is why our tool connects to almost, 100 plus channels globally, right? So what we've done here is, we've just sampled a few marketplaces in a few key countries just to kind of highlight the makeup of the seller's location, right? So I've split this into local sellers and foreign sellers. And as you can see, some countries, especially the English-speaking countries, actually have a very high proportion of foreign sellers, which, again, the point of this is to get you thinking about actually, you know what, maybe this cross-border activity or multi-Amazon geography selling is actually possible. So let me talk you guys through one example here. So let's take Germany, right? So we sampled the key marketplaces in Germany, which, you know, if you don't already know, are actually Amazon, eBay, Rakuten, Zalando, Otto, and Rail, right? At the time of doing this research. Now, what's interesting is 31%, on average, 31% of the sellers across these key marketplaces in Germany are not actually based in Germany, right? Now, that's pretty amazing given that there's probably, you know, border hurdles they have to overcome, shipping hurdles they have to come, you know, logistics hurdles they have to overcome, language hurdles, etc. Right? So, you know, to think that 31% of all the sellers on those marketplaces are not even based in Germany, that's pretty impressive. Now, to talk you through the UK equivalent of that, it's even higher. So 42% of sellers on the key UK marketplaces aren't even based in the UK. So this, I'm hoping that this actually paints the picture of, you know what, selling from into countries and markets that perhaps you're not based in is totally possible. There are a lot of people doing it, and, you know, they're probably making a lot of money, right? So again, the whole intention here is just to kind of paint the picture and get you thinking. Now, I did want to get to Australia, you know, the place where we are now. From the sampled marketplaces, it's probably the one market where there are actually more foreign sellers than there are actual Aussie sellers, right? Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because, you know, there is an interesting kind of synergy when you are talking about English-speaking markets, right? So I know, you know, when we looked at the foreign sellers, actually a lot of them are, yes, they're not in Australia, but they actually have come, you know, they're actually based in US or UK, you know, parts of Asia where English is the most commonly spoken language. So again, if you are in an English-speaking market, perhaps even if you're in Australia and you know you're doing well in marketplaces, you should actually consider the other English-speaking markets. It's kind of like a natural step. You know, you've already got you don't have to overcome a language barrier, right? Like, you're thinking about cross-border activity, you probably do an English-speaking market before you do German or Italian or Spanish or whatever. So yeah, just to get you guys thinking, and if you are using our tool for the first time, really you can there's nothing stopping you from selling in any you know, any marketplace around the world, really. Now, I wanted to get into a little bit more detail, and this is specific to those that are Amazon sellers. You know, a lot of times when we talk to people, we always wonder, like, where else do the Amazon sellers sell, right? Like, do they just sell on Amazon? Or do they actually, or is there like a level of cross-platform and cross-border activity? So we have gone ahead and sampled, you know, the data based on some data that was made available by SimilarWeb, and we have done a pretty interesting deep dive. So just to explain what's going on here in this slide, it's actually, so where else do Amazon sellers sell? So if you are an Amazon seller based in one of these countries here, where else do you sell? Do you sell abroad? Do you sell on other channels or whatever? That's what this is answering, right? And again, this is designed to get you thinking about, you know, if you're a German Amazon seller, you know, maybe you should consider selling elsewhere, like your counterparts. So I'll talk you through the UK example here. So if you're an Amazon seller based in the UK, right, based on the statistics and the data, actually there's a 19% chance, well, actually 19% of them will actually sell on eBay as well, right? Or it kind of feels, from what we can see, it feels like, you know, it's the may as well, or, you know, why not kind of opportunity. It's also in the UK, it's also English speaking. eBay's content requirements are less than Amazon. You can probably get away with, you know, using some of your Amazon content on eBay UK, right? So I'm not surprised, but it's also good to see that, you know, there are people already thinking about, you know, capturing extra sales from another channel. And okay, so let me talk you through the next one. So if you're an Amazon seller based in the UK, it's 22% chance, or 22% of the actual Amazon UK sellers are selling in the rest of Europe, right? Now that's a pretty high proportion. Now, what I mean by Europe there is, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, etc. Right? So there are actually a couple of language hurdles that probably have to be overcome. But I would say that that's a pretty high number, and I feel like it's really good to see a lot of people recognizing this already. Like I think right now we're looking at a time where it's kind of fashionable or on vogue to talk about cross-border multi-channel selling, but there the data does say that a lot of people are doing this, right? Now, just to cap off the UK, so if you're an Amazon seller based in the UK, 15% of you are actually selling on Amazon US. Now, is that surprising? Again, not really. It's not surprising that it's slightly lower than Europe, but again, this is just to get you thinking, right? If you're based in the UK, selling on Amazon, doing well, yes, people do talk about it publicly that Amazon US is a very hard market to crack and all that, but actually 15% of you are already doing it, right? So it is an opportunity. And what's not shown here is that number is actually slowly increasing. So I feel like there are sellers there kind of experimenting on other channels and other Amazon. So I also wanted to talk about the US, which Mike and Nick are probably way more familiar with than I am. Amazon sellers based in the US probably have the lowest level of, from this data anyway, the geographical kind of multi-channel cross-border selling. So if you're an Amazon seller based in the US, 6% of you are selling on eBay, 7% of you are selling on Walmart, 1% of you are selling on Amazon UK. Now, the numbers behind that are probably still absolutely massive, but the percentages are not that high. So I think if anything, if you're based in the US and you're watching this recording, you should probably think about cross-border selling like your European and Australian counterparts, where we're kind of like a lot more open to that. I think you guys probably have the most expertise with actually selling on Amazon. Mike and Nick, perfect examples of this. And marketplace selling, I think there's a lot of translatable skills. So yes, there's a low level of cross-border multi-market activity there, but I think that the Walmart number is growing, right? And I think it's a significant opportunity for capturing additional sales. So look, I hope this is kind of shaping your thinking, helping you open your mind to what other opportunities are out there as an Amazon seller or otherwise. So the last question is kind of a funny question. A lot of you and a lot of our users have actually asked, where the foreign Amazon sellers actually based, right? Because it's pretty hard to determine where they actually are. Anyway, SimilarWeb has provided this data to us, so we've done the detailed investigation. And what's not surprising here is a lot of the foreign Amazon sellers are actually based in China. I think a lot of people talk about that a lot, but the reality is when we looked at the back-end data, actually, it is validated, and some markets are much higher than others. So to talk you through, let's pick the French example. So in France, I'm assuming because of the language hurdle there, 84% of the Amazon sellers in France on Amazon France are local, right? But 4% are from China, 1% are from UK, 1% are from US, and the rest are probably spread out geographically, but these are the material numbers. Now, what's interesting is that, yes, that's probably the lowest foreign seller base, but it does get quite high. So let me talk about Australia again. So Australia, Amazon is so new, so it's not really that unexpected that there are, such a low amount of Amazon Australia sellers that are actually Australian. But 33% of the sellers on Amazon Australia are actually based in China. Massive figure, right? Massive. 8% are based in India, 5% are based in the US, and 4% are based in the UK. Now, what that's highlighting is that there are a lot of people, especially in China, thinking about, selling everywhere, but clearly India and the US as well to an extent. So what I'm trying to say here is that look at all this cross-border activity, right? Don't feel like as a seller or marketplace seller, you're just restricted to where you are. Like, I think the technology, the platforms, Amazon in particular, are all evolving to actually accommodate all this cross-border activity, right? And if you look at the Chinese activity, like, I think they are really getting it. And I think there's nothing stopping anybody else in the world, whether you're in, South Korea, New Zealand, or Singapore, there's nothing stopping anyone to kind of following that same global selling multi-channel roadmap. Now, before I hand over to topic 2, I just did want to say that I think the key part of it is having the right partner, which is why we're partnered with AMZ Advisors to prepare this video and provide these insights. But yeah, the next thing is global selling and how should I do it?
Awesome. Thank you for that, James. I'll jump in here and kind of take over and start my portion of the presentation. Obviously there's a lot of interesting data in what you just pointed out, and it kind of shows the open-mindedness or closed-mindedness of a lot of different sellers. Obviously, a lot of foreign sellers in China are very open in getting their products and their goods across a lot of different markets. For some reason, a lot of US sellers really only focus on the Amazon platform, when there are a lot of other platforms, both within the US and outside of the US, that may be easier for them to sell on or may provide a better opportunity that is less competitive. So I think it's important to approach global selling and figure out what marketplaces you want to go into. I think James made another good example of saying that starting, if you're an English, if you're from an English language marketplace as your first language, it's going to be easier getting into other English marketplaces. Like for US sellers, getting into Canada, getting into the UK, getting into Australia are all easy wins for them. They should really be focusing on those platforms first in a lot of ways. The fact that they don't do that is probably telling them that they're probably focused too much on actually being successful on just Amazon US and letting other opportunities pass by. So in my portion, I'm going to be talking about the 4 main obstacles and challenges that most sellers run into when it comes to expanding globally. And those 4 challenges are dealing with the fees, the taxes, and the regulations, dealing with your fulfillment options or how to actually get the product to your end customer, sales and advertising challenges that you're going to face, and then finally dealing with actually getting paid by the Amazon platform. Getting started on Amazon, and again, this presentation is going to be covering multiple platforms. It's going to be applicable to many different platforms for selling. There is going to be a big focus on Amazon because that is the largest e-commerce platform in most of the target marketplaces that we've been talking about. But however, getting started on Amazon is as simple as getting a professional seller account. The fees for a professional seller account, and we're going to show you the table for that in a minute, is pretty straightforward. Using the unified accounts for each marketplace allows you to open up in different countries for a one-time monthly fee in each of those marketplaces. So for example, in the North American unified market, you can launch as a professional seller, get into Canada, Mexico, and US, all for the same fee. Same goes for the European unified market. You can get into the European marketplaces. And then finally, the Far East region. As I said, there's a certain number of fees just to get selling on the platform. There are additional fees that go into selling on Amazon. Obviously, there is a referral fee that Amazon takes, and that varies by country. It also varies by product category. So that fee will range from the 6 to 20% range. And the average that most sellers are paying is about 15%. In addition to that, whether you're using other platforms like Amazon FBA to actually fulfill your customer orders, there's going to be additional fees for that, additional storage fees. There could be labeling fees if you're using that program. But at a minimum, every seller is going to be facing the referral fee in whatever marketplace they're launching in. And again, here's a breakdown of the unified account so you can see it for yourself. Canada, US, and Mexico are all in the North American unified account. In Europe, you get the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Netherlands, and Poland now, all within the European unified account. I believe Turkey is a separate account that you need to get access to. And then finally, Far East, you have access to India, Japan, Australia, Singapore. And Middle East and North Africa, you also have additional accounts. The big challenge that a lot of sellers struggle with is taxes. And I always recommend working with a local tax partner in whatever country or whatever marketplace you're going to be launching in. VAT is probably one of the most common taxes that you're going to face in many marketplaces in the EU, in every different country, as well as other countries like Mexico has their own VAT, Australia has the GST, and there are a bunch of other taxes that you're going to need to register for if you're selling in these different marketplaces. Using Amazon's service provider network is one of the best ways to get a local market service provider to help you deal with navigating the taxes that you're going to face. One of the main challenges specifically that a lot of sellers looking to get into the EU marketplaces is the time it takes to actually get their VAT registration in the UK. Since Brexit happened, it previously was the UK was the fastest to be able to get a European VAT, which would allow you to sell in the other marketplaces. That has now changed. Netherlands is actually the fastest country processing time-wise in continental Europe to be able to get your VAT, get your products into Amazon and start selling. So if you're looking to get into the European marketplaces, importing your products through the Netherlands first is going to be, and getting your VAT registration there is probably going to be the fastest way for you to get selling into the marketplaces. Again, if you are planning to go to Europe and you want to sell in the UK as well, it's kind of a separate process now, or you would need to require for VAT in both countries to be able to sell in both because of Brexit. In addition to dealing with taxes, another very common issue that a lot of sellers run into is dealing with different regulations. So between every country, I mentioned there are taxes to import it. There could also be customs fees, and in some instances tariffs, depending on where you're importing your products from. I remember when I was first selling, the first mistake that we made was importing colored pencils into another country. We didn't realize there was a tariff on colored pencils coming from China. So unless you're aware of that, that's definitely going to have an impact on what you're trying to do. Just going to try to go back one. Another big challenge that many sellers run into is intellectual property rights. Making sure that you have your brand protected or brand registered in each country is a good idea, especially having them protected in the countries that you're actually manufacturing. By controlling the IP in the country that you're manufacturing, you help reduce the possibility of hijackers coming onto your listings and other intellectual properties in the intellectual property issues in the future, by dealing with it at the root, at the manufacturing, and then as you start scaling across other marketplaces, getting it where you need. In addition to that, there are a lot of other hurdles that could be environmental, health, and safety hazards. Every country has different requirements on what products can be shipped. Every shipping company may have different products on where they have restrictions on what they can actually send to the end consumer. So being aware of that in every marketplace is going to be extremely important as well. Finally, one of the last big hurdles that many sellers face is actually dealing with the importer of record, or how are you actually going to get the product into the country. Every marketplace, every country is going to have a different law on how to deal with importer of record, or there may be some where you can do a non-resident importer of record, but there are going to be additional duties and taxes and fees in many of those instances. So finding a right logistics partner to help you ship the product to the target country that you're looking to get into, and then having someone on the ground to help you deal with the actual importation is going to be extremely important to make it a seamless process and to avoid any of your inventory possibly getting held up at customs or facing other logistical challenges in the process of selling on a new marketplace. Now that we've talked about some of the basic fees, taxes, and regulations that can become hurdles, the next one is how do I actually get the customer, or how do I actually get the product to the end consumer who's actually purchasing the product? FBA is typically one of the platforms that most people are familiar with using on the Amazon US side. However, there is FBA available in almost every other country that Amazon has a marketplace in. Within Europe, for example, there are a few different options for dealing with your fulfillment. So there is the Pan-European FBA, which previously included UK. It's now excluded from the UK, where you can send your inventory into a fulfillment center. If you select the Pan-European FBA, when you set up FBA, Amazon will then distribute that inventory in every marketplace that you put the listings live. So for example, if you're selling in France, Italy, and Germany, and you had the listings set live in each of those countries, Pan-European FBA would distribute inventory across those fulfillment centers to make sure that they could get the product to the end consumer in the most efficient and fastest time. Another option here is the European Fulfillment Network, which is slightly different. So within European Fulfillment Network, you can have your inventory in a local country. So previously, if you're in the UK, as a seller, you could have your inventory in the UK and then fulfill from FBA to all the other marketplaces in Europe. Likewise, if you're in Germany, by using the European Fulfillment Network, you'll have your inventory in Germany, but you will be able to send FBA orders to every other country that is that you have your listings live in different marketplaces like France, Italy, Spain, possibly Poland, or even Netherlands. Multi-country inventory is the last option. That's essentially sending your inventory to individual countries or individual marketplaces that you plan to sell on. The inventory is restricted to those countries. It won't actually be sent outside of those countries unless you have the FBA export option on in your account. Another great reason to use FBA is multi-channel fulfillment. So multi-channel fulfillment can actually allow you to sell on multiple marketplaces. So I know James talked about a lot of different marketplaces that were available in every different country. By using FBA, you could, in many instances, fulfill multi-channel orders on eBay or whatever other platforms your customers are shopping on, have your inventory managed in one location, and have Amazon deal with all the logistic headaches that you may face as a seller. Alternatively, you could be using a 3PL or a third-party logistics company. So we always recommend this to our customers whenever they're launching in a new marketplace. Having a local logistics partner can take a lot of the headaches off of their plate. So one good example of what they can do is they can help you deal with actually importing the product into the country. So many instances, they will serve as the importer of record. They can also help deal with last mile fulfillment. So actually getting the product to the end consumer. If you're selling through FBM on Amazon or selling through your own website or whatever other channels you are and not actually using a program like FBA. It also allows you to launch on multiple marketplaces, like I said. So you could be on Amazon, eBay, Rakuten, whatever marketplaces are available in the country you're looking for. So using a 3PL service provider, will help you deal with the obstacles of each of those individual platforms. And then finally, it's probably going to improve delivery times because you'll actually have your inventory in the local market with that 3PL provider helping you to get that product to the end consumer in a fast and reliable time. The next big obstacle that most sellers run into when they're launching in new marketplaces are the sales and advertising challenges. So the first one is languages. And James talked about the English language marketplaces and seeing a lot of English sellers launching on the other English platforms. And that's primarily because translation to the local language is a big challenge that many sellers face. You can also use the Amazon Partner Network to find translators that can help translate into the local language. But we always recommend using a native speaker to handle customer support and to actually do the translation for the platform that you're looking to sell on. There are options like Amazon's own translations within the platform and using the international listings tool. However, we find that a lot of the times the local dialects in certain languages may be different, or you may want to change things to be more focused on a specific platform. So a good example of this is, our company, we handle a lot of clients that are from Latin America. Latin American Spanish is very different than European Spanish. So if you're using a European Spanish translator to launch in marketplaces like Mexico or even some of the other Amazon marketplaces in South America, you're going to run into a lot of issues there and challenges with language differences or local dialects or even using different nouns to describe certain words. So using a local translator or a local language specialist is probably going to be the best way to create your Amazon listings in whatever marketplace you're looking to launch in. And then finally, that also carries on over to a lot of challenges that sellers face when it actually comes to marketing their products. So again, using that local translator to figure out what keywords are going to be the most important for whatever marketplace you're going into. is going to be extremely helpful when it comes to launching your paid advertising campaigns. It's going to help you get your SEO correct for the organic sales or the organic indexing that you're going to be getting on the Amazon platform. And finally, it's going to help you meet the customer demand because you're actually going to be able to get the product ranked for the right keywords. They're going to be able to see what they see that this product is actually doing what they want and making sure that the local translator is using correct grammar structure and everything that actually explains what the product does. And I think that's extremely important when it comes to dealing with actually advertising and marketing your platforms, your products once you are on a different platform. And then finally, the last hurdle that many sellers face with, and one of the more important ones, is how are you actually going to get paid? So you have a few different options. You can use a bank account in every marketplace you're looking to enter. This will typically require you to actually open a business in every single country. That's usually more of a challenge that most sellers want to take on. What they'll use instead is Amazon's currency converter. That's typically what we see. However, Amazon takes about a 6% fee, which can be pretty steep for most sellers. There are a lot of other options out there like Payoneer and Ping Pong Payments, where you can connect to multiple marketplaces, and the fees that they charge for the currency conversion is about 1%. And that's actually going to save you a lot of money over the long run when it comes to trying to convert that currency back into the local market you're looking for. Or you could even keep it within those platforms in that local currency if, for example, your manufacturers were located in that country and you had to pay them in their local currency. With that being said, that wraps up most of what I have. With that, I think we're going to move on to the questions section. I know we had a lot of questions submitted ahead of time, and I believe Nick will be asking those questions to James and myself.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, James, for that. A lot of great information there. Just to jump right into the questions, Mike, you were talking a bit about pan-European selling, and James, feel free to jump in here too. But can you just kind of like walk through what this looks like for a seller? For instance, if I'm selling on Amazon France and I'm using pan-European fulfillment, do I need to be logging into all the different European Seller Central accounts to check where the sales are in each country, or is it all from one account? What does it look like? And you talked about different options and networks as well. Is this typically all done in one Seller Central account, or is this multiple Seller Central accounts that you're managing on a daily basis?
Sure. So for simplicity, pan-European is one of the best options to keep things pretty much as hassle-free as you want to. If you're using multi-country, it's going to require you to monitor your inventory levels across each individual country, which can get really time-consuming if you don't have the resources or the bandwidth to actually manage that. With pan-European, again, you're sending your inventory to whatever marketplaces you put your listings on. So if you're selling in Germany, France, and Italy, the pan-European inventory that you have will be split between those marketplaces. And actually seeing your sales, seeing how many units you're going through with the unified European account, all of those sales are reflected on each account you'll be going into. They're aggregated each day, so you can see how many overall sales you're getting. You can select into the individual business reports for each individual country to see what countries you're selling on more. But with pan-European, you can manage the inventory pretty much all from one account, see your aggregated sales from that same account, if that's the most important aspect to it, or get more granular if you want to.
Awesome. Great answer. James, do you have anything to add to that, or did Mike basically cover it?
No, I think that's well covered.
All right. Awesome. So staying on the topic, there's been a bit of hype about the ease of moving on to the Amazon Netherlands marketplace. So do they have a warehouse yet? And is fulfillment actually happening on the ground in the Netherlands, or what's that look like? And if they don't, is that something that Amazon is going to do moving forward?
Yeah. So again, with the Netherlands marketplace is still fairly new. Amazon does not actually have an FBA center within the country. However, it does allow pan-European fulfillment or the European Fulfillment Network to actually send orders to Amazon. So, for example, if you are using Pan-European or European Fulfillment Network, more than likely you're going to be selling on the German marketplace. The FBA centers in Germany are very closely located to the Netherlands. So Amazon FBA can actually fulfill the orders in the Netherlands for you. Again, getting into the European marketplace is going through the Netherlands to actually get your VAT registration and get your inventory into Europe is a great port to bring your products in through right now. Germany's probably the second best when it comes to the speed of getting your VAT registration. But once you have your VAT registration in one of the European countries, you can start using European Fulfillment Network or Pan-European to actually start selling on the other platforms as you're going through the process of getting VATs in the other marketplaces.
Awesome. So just to jump in, we have another question, and this is more about Amazon's broader plans for the next few years. These past few years have been really exciting, particularly in Asia, start opening a marketplace in Singapore, having sales in Australia get ramped up, having India sort of soar in terms of traffic on its marketplace. But where's Amazon going next? Where are their sights set? They've kind of been all over, but do you guys know which marketplaces they're going to be moving into over the next few years?
James, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, look, that's an interesting question. I would like to say I have an answer, but I have absolutely no idea where it's going. What I would say, though, is that it's clear that everywhere that they seem to launch a marketplace, they're trying to scale it up as quickly as possible. So maybe there's an element of consolidation here. In saying that, what we know about Amazon Netherlands is they've already started to build the FBA warehouse at Schiphol Airport. Building it right now. So perhaps that's signaling, okay, they've just expanded to Netherlands, Poland, Sweden in the last 12 months. Maybe that's they just kind of build up all the capability before they expand. But that's just a hypothesis, Nick. I would leave the real answer to Mike.
Well, I think at best we can only really guess. I think with the presence of the European Fulfillment Network and Pan-European Network, expanding to a lot of the other European countries does make sense. I think looking at Portugal probably makes sense, being with the proximity to Spain and the fulfillment capabilities there, possibly some other smaller marketplaces in Eastern Europe. However, for me, I think there's a massive opportunity in Latin America and pushing into some of the other Asian marketplaces, like possibly Indonesia, possibly Malaysia, possibly Thailand. Obviously China is a massive marketplace, but most foreign e-commerce platforms that have launched in China have failed. So I don't think that we will see Amazon opening up there really anytime again.
All right. Those are actually really good answers for not having a clear answer. Yeah, there's been a lot of hype around Poland. That kind of surprised me and came out of nowhere. But after watching James' presentation and seeing that there's probably more activity going on there than we thought in Sweden as well. So the next one, we've had a lot of great information in this presentation, but I'm just going to distill all of this and ask a really simple question, which is which marketplace is the easiest to expand to? If you're coming from, let's just say the US for this example, considering it's the biggest, what's easiest? If I'm going to start tomorrow, give me the simple answer. Where do we go and why?
It depends on your definition of easy, Nick. Look, if you're talking about just flicking a switch and getting going in a couple of hours, arguably it would have to be eBay, right? Like that would be the easiest to just get on and sell. But in terms of easiest to get on and actually make money, based on the data that we see, it's probably Walmart, to be honest. And depending on what category, it might be, if you're selling audio equipment in the US, it might be Reverb, right? That might be relatively easy to get on and relatively easy to actually make money within the first few days. So again, depends on your definition and depends on your category. And, ease of doing would be eBay, but ease of making sales, I think really depends on your category.
Yep, I would agree with that. I would say that certain channels outside, if we're talking about, the US specifically, other marketplaces outside of Amazon may be better based on the categories you're in. For example, we see Etsy is very good for a lot of more handcraft goods, home goods, women's products, like apparel, things like that. Etsy is a very good platform. Zulily may be good. When it comes to expanding to other international marketplaces, if you are if you are in an English-based country, expanding to other English-speaking countries is probably going to be the lowest hurdle. Or if you have English as a second language, those are probably the marketplaces that are the countries that I would say you would want to expand to, prior or before you try moving into a country where you have no experience with the language.
Great. And so, yeah, the follow up with that, we're talking about expanding to different platforms, expanding to maybe different countries on Amazon. One question I certainly get all the time, and breaking it down is sometimes complex, but pricing strategy. A lot of people ask me when I go to a new marketplace, should I go cheaper in the new marketplace in the beginning? Should I keep my prices the same across platforms? What things do I need to consider if I am considering changing my price on a different platform like Walmart, Etsy, versus what my price is on Amazon as the fees change and I have my own website? There's a lot of pricing variables. So does it make sense just to keep the retail price the same across all platforms? Or are there other things to consider when we're doing a pricing strategy for an expansion?
Yeah, so what I think I would say is that I would try to be as consistent as possible. One of the big challenges that many sellers run into is that Amazon will price match other platforms, and if they're not beating the prices on the other platforms for your product, you may end up with your listing being suppressed within search results, so you're not going to get as many sales as possible. This is just one of the challenges of dealing with the Amazon platform. When it comes to launching in a new marketplace, most of the time, I wouldn't recommend discounting your product or discounting the price on your product. If it's a newer marketplace, the lack of competition from other sellers may make you one of the only products in the marketplace, and there's no need for you to really discount your price to get the sales going. If you're trying to launch into a more competitive marketplace like the US, I would look at other options from a straight discount, starting with a lower price. I would probably discount through the use of coupons or through the use of other promotions to try to maximize the sales velocity and draw as much attention as possible versus actually going in with a lower price.
All right. And James, I know Merchant Spring, you guys are obviously monitoring many different platforms and marketplaces. Do you agree with what Mike's saying? Do you normally see a lot of consistency across different marketplaces, or is there more variability in maybe different parts of the world and how this is approached?
No, I think we see a lot of consistency because I think regardless of where you are, the economics are still the same based on you're essentially sourcing the product from the same location. And the margins remain consistent. So yeah, we see a lot of consistency unless there's a highly sensitive market where let's just say the discretionary spending of households is much lower. For example, what we've seen in Indonesia is a significantly lower basket size, significantly lower prices in comparable categories. But look, if you're talking about mature markets with Amazons, we see consistency.
All right, awesome. So you mentioned margin, and for international sellers in particular, they have the expansion figured out. Maybe they have their pricing strategy, but international logistics, I think we've seen over this year, especially over the past 6 months, that a lot of things are changing in the space. I think it's pretty generally accepted that it's getting a little more expensive, or maybe just finding the right partners is a challenge. So given that context and how sending things to different countries will definitely be something to consider in terms of your costs, what's the best strategy for an international seller? Is it to have all your stock in one spot, and anytime you need to fulfill or send inventory to different warehouses, just sending it from there? Is it to have a 3PL partner in each country that you're selling in, and kind of dispersing and spreading out the inventory you have? Just given the nature of 2021 and the way international sellers sell, what are best practices for managing logistics processes?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think I can give you a very quick answer on that one, Nick. What we saw in 2021 is a lot of marketplaces released their own native 3PL service. So in fact, in Southeast Asia, they actually have fulfillment by Lazada, pretty much a direct, copy of fulfillment by Amazon. We saw in France, Cdiscount has fulfillment by Cdiscount, right? So another perfect example of, trying to copy the Amazon model. And in Australia, we saw a similar, very deep DNA sharing partnership with eBay. They had a partnership with Fulfillio, which is essentially fulfillment by eBay, right? So what we saw is evolution on the platform side. And then we saw sellers kind of take that roadmap because they don't want to deal with all the, the BS of having, 3PLs and feeds and all this weird crap going on. They literally just went global and adopted the marketplaces that had like a built-in, fulfillment service just to keep it easy. Mike, do you have any other view?
No, I mean, I would agree with that. If you have the ability to get into a platform-based fulfillment network like Amazon FBA or Mercado Libre fulfillment or any of the other ones that are out there, it's probably going to help your product maximize its visibility and availability within that platform. However, there are a lot of instances where you probably are going to need your own warehouse or a 3PL to actually house your inventory. So one good example is that if you're a foreign seller looking to launch in the US, you can't use Amazon FBA to fulfill your inventory on a lot of other platforms. So actually using FBA multi-channel to fulfill Walmart orders is a big no-no. If Walmart catches you shipping in a Amazon box, they will suspend you from the platform. So there are a lot of instances where you are going to need a 3PL partner in the local market to help manage the inventory and manage the fulfillment to the end consumer.
Yeah, I remember, I think in Australia a few years ago too, they were using multi-channel fulfillment from Amazon for eBay, and I think eBay pretty quickly said, we don't want Amazon boxes showing up. So yeah, that became kind of a news story there, if I recall correctly. Anyway, so we're kind of winding down time-wise here. I think we have time for one more question. Going to change gears a little bit. This is a question that we got, and I think it's relevant for everyone, especially when you want to consider, moving on to a different platform from Amazon, and it's just SEO in general, or just listing optimization, I can say more broadly speaking. But what is the difference? This term SEO is thrown around a lot. We talk about it for basically any type of listing on any of these platforms, whether it be Lazada or Google. But Amazon's SEO has been known to be distinct in some ways. So, what is the difference between traditional SEO and Amazon SEO? And are there any considerations that to have if you're just going to copy the listing you have from Amazon? Do you just put that up on Walmart, or do you just put that up on your website? What are the distinctions there?
This could be a very long answer. We could probably do a whole nother webinar on this actually, but just to give it a breakdown, I mean, each individual platform, Walmart, Amazon, whatever you're selling on, is in itself a search engine like Google, and each one's going to have different rules for how to actually optimize for the SEO. Within Amazon, you have a certain number of characters. You want to place keywords in a certain area within the listing. So there's a lot of different challenges with actually dealing with it that way. Same goes for Walmart. SEO on Walmart is probably even more important than Amazon because the lack of capabilities within the advertising platform on the Walmart side right now. And it's going to and all of that varies differently from Google SEO. So if we're talking about Google, getting your products SEO'd, that's more about building links, having relevant keywords within your copy so that Google can search it, versus Amazon or platform SEO, where it's largely about conversion rate, relevancy, and obviously the keywords that are in there based on what the customer is searching for. So that is a very, very short explanation of what it could be, but there's a lot more that goes into it when we think of it SEO from whatever platform you're looking to be on.
So just to take your answer, if I'm going to a new platform, I should definitely talk to a specialist who has SEO or experience on that platform and not just assume that it's going to be transferable.
Yes, I would definitely recommend doing your research, possibly talking to a partner that can help you sell on that marketplace if you don't have prior experience. There's always going to be different obstacles, different hurdles that you're not aware of until you really get on there. So if you're thinking about doing that, I always recommend shortening the learning curve instead of trying to spend your own time trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
All right. So guys, it looks like this is going to conclude our webinar. Do you guys have any last points or anything you want to say before we take this off?
Yeah, let me just jump in and just say, look, if you are watching this during our onboarding flow, if you can, you sell on as many channels as possible. I think the message here is it's totally possible. Tons of people are doing it. And look, there's nothing to lose, right?
Yep. I would also agree with that. I think the more platforms you can get on, the better. It's actually shocking when we looked at some of these local sellers and the lack of other platforms, the diversity that they have. If you're really trying to grow your brand internationally, getting onto different marketplaces, getting into different countries is really going to be the way to do that. It's going to probably lead to unique wins in certain marketplaces that you would not have had otherwise, that can lead to become very profitable outcomes for you and your business.
All right. Thanks, guys. Excellent presentation today.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Have a good day.